あリス。
The origins of totalitarianism and thought control. Most are aware of the terms Orwellian, political correctness, thought police, or brave new world, as well as the oppressive secular and religious systems throughout history that inspired them. Although assumed that these individuality-killing mechanisms are relatively modern constructs, the reality is that they are not only as old as Christianity but originated with Christianity itself. In his book, The New Inquisition, Arthur Feschlausch proposes that it was the heresy hunting of the early church fathers that spawned the very DNA for later totalitarian and police state institutions. Before the rise of the heresiologists, empires conquered almost solely for natural resources, slavery and prestige. For the most part, subjugated nations could keep their native faiths, customs and ideologies. Religious persecution within an empire usually arose when a certain priesthood or nobility, the earthly representatives of their specific gods, ignited some form of insurrection. Per Feschlausch, a seismic shift away from this attitude occurred in the 2nd century CE when Christianity began to solidify itself as an organized religion instead of multiple, independent sects. Church fathers such as Irenaeus of Lyons and Tertullian of Carthage saw the need to streamline the dogmas of their maturing religion to gain respectability within the Roman Empire. Dissent or autonomous speculation could threaten the very survival of Christianity, at least that was their rationale. They drew a harsh line in the doctrinal sand, referring to their form of Christianity as orthodoxy, from the Greek for right thinking. On the other side stood the Gnostics, who they labeled heretics, from the Greek to choose, in the context of independent thought diverging from standard norms. The demarcation spread to entire communities, as more heretics were exposed, and the term conveniently broadened to other sects, religions and even political principles. In other words, an enemy was no longer defined by action, outward allegiance or even citizenship, but by their very thoughts. As the Orthodox wing grew and copulated with the Roman government, volumes of texts were written on how to recognize, decipher and correct those who had made a choice away from right thinking. Thinking for the first time in history could be criminalized by the state. This template for totalitarian control wasn't fully perfected until the arrival of the Inquisition in the 12th century. Despite common perception, the Inquisition was not implemented to deal with Jews, witches or other minorities, but ironically against the Gnostics, the rebellious Cathars of southern France. With the blessing of the Pope, and the greed of opportunistic nobles, heresy hunting became fully weaponized to counter the resilience of the medieval Gnostics. Despite the advent of the Age of Enlightenment and democratic nations, history clearly reveals that the repressive formula of the early Church Fathers and medieval inquisitors was never abandoned. The New Inquisition offers the infamous examples of authoritarian regimes and their thought police, the French Revolution corruptors, European/Asia Marxism, Nazism, and various spectrums of fascism. Yet Feschlausch proffers evidence of intellectuals who influenced notorious despotic movements, directly or indirectly, who were very well aware of the heresy hunters and their methodologies. Many certainly summoned the bogeyman of the Gnostics when needed. The question might arise of why the book is called The New Inquisition, since thought crime is an unkillable contagion that mutates and migrates to different hosts. The answer is the warning of Verschlausch that the heresy-hunting virus is still considered a viable toxin by many in power even in free societies. The satanic panic and illuminati-phobia of the 1980s and 1990s in the West are two cases that fortunately did not evolve into literal witch hunts. This organization is a Christian Illuminati creating false Illuminati implanted in the minds of the population to create schisms and manufacture threats, making it easier to control public perception. The grim truth is that the heresy-hunting/inquisition golem will never be destroyed, built in the infernal imagination of those who feel that the greater good means little free will and free thinking. And, as Verschlausch points out, it is a dark irony that the main scaremongers of these two examples, Pat Robertson and Tim Leahy, were members of the clandestine Council for National Policy. The Gnostics took the first blows from this golem, and beyond countless millions have paid dearly because of nothing more than an idea to punish ideas. The modern-day inquisitor no longer requires torture chambers or bribed neighbors. The internet, electronic messaging, and social media have made the public's thoughts more accessible than ever. All it takes to contaminate liberty is one wedding day between a dictatorial belief system and the state. Overnight, an individual's thoughts can be transformed into damning witnesses in a kangaroo court. Ideas can indeed change the world. But some ideas are best left in the infernal imagination of certain people, lest we get a brave new world and its golems.
What is it?